No, I love Tom Brokaw. Maybe you don't like him. I like him. I like a newsman who was loved by the establishment, the military, and so this happened. So the NBC did a special on him. It says, "Don't miss tomorrow, Tom Brokaw on NBC News, the first 50 years." So it's nice that in the middle of our country bombing 7 different Muslim countries, spending more than the next 13 countries combined on our military, it's nice that in the middle of all that, they're giving a special to a newsman who got the highest award possible from the military. And if you're a newsman, how do you get an award from the military? I bet it's because you showed all the bullshit we were doing in those wars, right? Is it because you showed how the Pentagon wastes money? Was it because you show all the war crimes we commit when we illegally invade other countries? How do you get an award from the military exactly? Oh, you run around doing TV specials about how great the military is. That's why. That's a good newsman. You know, when he's well loved by the military, you know that's a great newsman. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying it. So let's listen to it. Is there something on here? No, they just show. There's no audio. It's just that. It looks really cool, right? It looks really cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna TiVo it.
So just who is Tom Brokaw? Tom Brokaw spent a lot of years. I mean, he knows a lot about America because he spent a lot of time flying over it in his jet. Let's be honest, right? So here he is talking about. This is a couple years ago. Here he is talking about Social Security and Medicare. And you ready? Here's his big idea. First of all, there's no problem with Social Security. Social Security has a 2-point-something trillion surplus. But they always want to cut Social Security. Why? Because they want to take that money and give it to their freaking criminal friends. That's why. They don't want to tax the billionaires. They want to take your Social Security. That's why they always want to cut Social Security. Social Security's solvent for decades. So here's what he had to say about it. Ready? Here's our America's number one newsman.
A lot of people, my generation, are saying it's crazy that we have retirement at the age that we do. We can move that up, for example.
Who's saying that? Who is saying that?
A lot of people, my generation, are saying it's crazy that we have retirement at the age that we do. We can move that up, for example.
A lot of people of his generation. You mean like bricklayers and truck drivers and construction workers? Or do you mean the ascot-wearing millionaires that you hang out with in TV green rooms? When you say a lot of people of your generation.
Or do you mean people that are already retired?
People that are already retired?
People that are retired that are like, everyone else could work longer.
Yeah, they should work longer. Hey, how are we going to get out of this big hole unless we push a bunch of old people in it? That's our number one journalist. That's who he is. His big idea is austerity. To take the money for wars out of the pensions of old people. That's his big idea. Make them work longer. Make people work. Yeah. You know what I would like? Because I'd like a 73-year-old fireman coming to get me out of my burning house. I'd like a 69-year-old cop or a truck driver or a bricklayer.
I love 80-year-old waitresses.
Oh, there's nothing that makes my meal go down better than when I see a 71-year-old waitress with a goiter. Is there anything else? I mean, it's great, right, Tom? We should have 70-year-old waitresses, maybe, or 70-year-old dishwashers, or 70-year-old cab drivers. Maybe what else, Tom? People of it's not only did he say we should move it up, he said it's
a lot of people, my generation, are saying it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy that people retire at 65 years old. That's our number. That's who Tom Brokaw is, just so you know. So he's an out-of-touch knucklehead who doesn't know his asshole from a hole in the ground. That's who Tom Brokaw is. Just so you know. Okay? He's got awards as long as my arm. He could from here, he's got awards from here to the end of the Iraq War, which isn't over. And in case that wasn't enough, here's Tom Brokaw after Nancy Reagan died. Here's him telling you a heartwarming story of how to get media access without actually doing any journalism.
In 1966, when I was just arrived at NBC, I was 26 years old, and I drew a lucky straw. I started covering Ronald Reagan's campaign for governor. And Nancy was kind of low visibility in those days, and they were all concerned about, could a Hollywood man become the governor? And then, of course, I covered the first term, the second term, and then the campaign for president. And I got to know them well, but I was always a reporter, always a journalist, and they understood that. When he first took office, I said...
Oh, they understood I was going to be the reporter. I'm going to tell the uncomfortable facts. They understood that. So now he's about to tell you a story, which reveals they didn't understand that.
When he first took office, I said something that was a little bit intemperate. I said, you know, this whole business about him being a poor boy, right after he got out of college, he had a really good job in Iowa, and he was a high-paid actor in Hollywood. Nancy really didn't like me saying that, so I got a call immediately.
But they always understood he was a reporter. But if he told the truth about what happened to him, oh, you telling that truth? This is amazing. That's kind of amazing, right? And if you listen to the words he used, he said, I was a little bit intemperate when when he reported. Look up what intemperate means. When he reported
I thought that meant he was
that
drunk.
Ronald Reagan, what? Are you
that
talking
meant
in the
he's drunk.
microphone? What?
I thought that meant he was drunk.
Oh, okay.
Intemperate means having or showing a lack of self-control, immoderate.
So he was referring to his reporting as out of control, no self-control, because I reported that Ronald Reagan's BS story about him being a poor boy was a BS story. He referred to his own reporting as intemperate. Ready? Here we go.
From Jim Baker and the others, and saying, stay away from the White House for a while. And
they told him to stay away from the White House for a while. The guy who covered them for 2 terms told him to stay away from the White House for a while because he reported that I guess this story keeps going.
I said, well, I'm not going to back off. And they said, no, we understand, but just stay away. And the president doesn't care about it. But Nancy is really on a tear about you. About 2 months later, I got this call, and they said, you're going to be invited to a state dinner. You have to figure out what you're going to say to Nancy in the receiving line. I said, okay. So I go down for the state dinner. Meredith is with me. We're in the receiving line, and Meredith keeps saying, have you figured out what you're going to say yet? And I kept...
By the way, he was told to stay away from the White House, and he did. Just so you know, he just said that in his story. They said, you better not come around for a few months. Okay, so he didn't, and then he gets invited to a state dinner. And the big problem is, not that I haven't been able to report for the last few months because I haven't been coming around the White House, but the problem is, what am I going to say to Nancy? What? What am I going to say to Nancy? You know, the people who always understood he was the reporter? This is amazing. All right, here we go.
No, I haven't figured it out yet. And I get right up to her, and I said, Nancy, back to square one, just like that. This is the photograph of that moment.
Wow.
And it arrived the next day, this photograph, with the inscription, Dear Tom, back to square one.
love it.
Nancy. That was so typical of her.
That story sucked.
Tom Brokaw tells a heartwarming story about how he was punished for accidentally committing an act of journalism. That's what that story tells you, right, Ron?
That's it. He's like, I didn't do my job because, like, we're all in a club.
Yeah.
That's basically the theme of his story.
It's more important to get along than to actually do journalism. It's more important to stay friendly with the people in power.
Yeah.
That's what his story is about. His story. Tom Brokaw was the pioneer of access journalism. If you ever wonder how Luke Russert happened, that's his real father.
You know, this is kind of a side note, though, but when you're remembering somebody, aren't you supposed to tell a story about that person? That was a story about him, and Nancy was like a side note.
Well, he was trying to talk about what a nice lady she was. She put it away. Well, he says she didn't harp on it.
She put it away in a hurry. She didn't want to have a whole ongoing feud with me. And it was kind of the beginning of a different level of a relationship.
It was a different level, the one where I wouldn't say bad things about them in my journalism. It was that kind of relationship where she let me know that if I said anything she didn't like, I was in trouble, and I was like, okay, all right, back to square one.
One slap on the wrist was all I needed because, man, that was a good dinner.
This is the story of Tom Brokaw taking journalism back to square one. That's what that is. That's what it's amazing.
And his memento is like, it's evidence that he's easily compromised. That's what that
Yes.
photo is. Here you go. Here's a photo. This photo right here with me and Nancy, it shows when I don't report any longer.
He tells a story about Nancy Reagan intimidating journalists, and the journalist who's intimidated in the story is him. He's the guy who's intimidated, and he doesn't understand that this is a horrible story to tell. This is a story about telling you how to get access journalism, not actually doing, because if you slip up and do some journalism, they're going to keep you out of the White House. And then it's up to you to grovel back on your hands and knees and ask for their forgiveness. Oh, please, sir, I promise not to say anything negative about you on my NBC. He thinks that's a good story. So that's who Tom Brokaw is. I think he really liked Nancy Reagan strictly because she didn't have any L's in her name. And here's one more real journalist for you, Tom. He says, we're supposed to be the dog that keeps nipping at the heels of the powerful. We are supposed to be the people who engage in inelegant behavior, like sticking our nose under the tent to see what the grand poobahs are planning for us. It's an indignity, it's hard to do, and it becomes very difficult to do. It becomes very difficult to do that if you're sucking up to the people you're covering. Now that's a real journalist, and guess what NBC News did to him? They fired him because he was right about the Iraq War. Tom Brokaw, the Army gave him an award, and NBC's giving him a special. Hey, Tom, maybe you never heard of this, but journalism is printing what someone else does not want printed. Everything else, public relations.